All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. I'm jumping on just a little bit early, just than I planned, just to show you what's kind of going on out there in the market here today. And I have the hourly chart of S&P futures, and you can see it's just nada, right? I mean, there's nothing going on in that, meaning we're not moving outside of average true ranges. The market's not breaking any key levels. The market is, is being what it has been. There's not a, big change index wise. But that said, there's some subtle changes that are going on, and I think more than subtle. In terms of some of the erosion that's starting to happen, considering the market is flat, and typically you don't see a lot of erosion when the market's flat, but we started to see a little bit yesterday. We're seeing a little bit more here today. Let me just show you what I mean. We've looked at the number of stocks trading above the 7-day moving average, right? And you can see here today, it's 241. It's 50-50 in the S&P, with stocks trading above their 7-day moving average. It's not a number that's strongly bearish or strongly bullish. It's a very neutral number, and this is one of the reasons why we've seen the market vibe number tick down. It's just because this has come out of overbought territory, and that's about it. Right, and the bears really haven't captured anything overall. But as I was running my normal scans here this morning, I noticed a few things. One of them here is when we look at 3-7 crossovers that are going on out there, and what's the importance of a 3-7 crossover? Well, let me just kind of show it to you here. A 3-7 crossover. They're two small moving averages and both exponential. And every upward trend starts with the 3-day moving average moving above the 7-day moving average. Always. Every time. Maybe one of the only always in the market. Every upward trend starts with a 3-day moving average crossing above the 7-day moving average. Every downward trend starts with the opposite happening. Now, just because one or the other happens doesn't mean a trend has to emerge, but it is the first sign that, hey, something is potentially changing, right? Occasionally we get a little divergence here and, pop back up or something like that. That's, that does happen. But you can see on the Dow Jones Industrial Average, we had the 3-day moving down, the 7-day flat, but the 3-day is not moving below the 7-day moving average here just yet. They're a few points off, right? But when we go and we look at stocks in the S&P 500 and look for stocks that are making these moves with the 3-day crossing below the 7-day, this is a monster list. This is almost 10% of the S&P. Has the 3-day moving average moving below the 7-day moving average. It's one of the bigger numbers that we ever see. And, it is something that doesn't say, hey, you know what, the market has to collapse or the market has to go down here. But it is a big flashing red warning sign saying something has changed. Something is changing. And if we go and look at some of these names, like we talked about Micron, right? It had the 3-7 crossover, tried to yesterday, bounced a little bit, so didn't fully have it, has it here today. Doesn't mean you rush out and go short it, off of this and everything else. But we are seeing that dynamic shift. Halliburton yesterday, we talked about it. It had that kind of subtle 3-7 crossover, yesterday. Getting a little bit of follow through here this morning, but definitely has that kind of 3-7 downside signal associated with it. Here's Apache, has the 3-7 crossing down here today after a gap up. But you can see all the names on this list, and it's across sectors. There's tech, there's energy, there's financial, there's materials, there's real estate, there's consumer names in here. It is a it is a pretty monster list. Where we're seeing those 3.7s kind of crossing to the downside, from Disney to a Facebook. We are seeing this happen. Really just a lot out there in the market today, and I found that to be really interesting. Now, these are kind of daily signals, daily trigger type of things. So they could obviously change before the close here today. But we see a pretty large list, coming into play here with this today. Now, if we go and look on the other side, on the bullish side of 3.7 crosses to the upside, there are some of those out there. There are 13 of them. If you look at, who's doing that, not a whole lot of really, big names. Bristol Myers probably the biggest, as their Celgene deal is being debated. We see Hormel Foods, as there's some talk of some consolidation in the sector. American Tower, AMT, this company was downgraded this morning. They were downgraded, and they've been nothing but bought up here since this morning. SBAC, same group, same sector, nothing but bought up here since this morning. CCI, which is also in the same group, nothing but bought up here this morning. So downgraded and bought up, it generally means they're going higher. So it does have that 3.7 cross to the upside. So there is some of that still out there, right? But that number on the downside is very high. Is much higher than we will typically see, and it's just another kind of one of those warning signs here, for the market, just saying, hey, things are a little frothy, and we could start seeing some dip, here going forward. Now we are getting to the end of a new month, or end of a month, and generally there's some selling action that comes in at the end of a month. That's the norm. The first day of the month typically is a buy day. Last day of the month typically a sell day. It doesn't always work like that. Term trends are that tends to be the case. And so seeing a little weakness here today, not exactly a huge deal overall. Now for the challenge, I'm in all cash right now. I did cash out of my Halliburton here this morning as it went down to a short-term support level. It's kind of just danced around that level since I exited. I would like to get back in. I would definitely like to get back into Hal or Schlub or, any of these names. We're even seeing some of the Chevrons breaking below the 7-day moving average. Some of the outperformers, Exxon not quite, but a Valero here pushing into the lower Bollinger Band. So we're definitely seeing some, energy weakness out there. And this isn't on a pullback in oil. Oil the last 2 days has been up. We see energy stocks weakening as oil's rallying here, and that generally speaks to further weakness within the energy market. So I will be looking to get back in, later on here today. I do want to kind of see how things play out here a little bit, and it may even be one where I wait for a little bounce tomorrow, a little kind of first day of the month or jobs bounce, to go ahead and jump back in. But we'll be definitely looking for an opportunity to get back in there. Still looking at FedEx. Still would like to, get short FedEx, but it's still in this same spot. Yes, I know it's $2 or $3 here and there, but overall it is still in this exact same freaking spot where, it's just not moving. There's just no real drive here, moving FedEx right now. Apple, I'm kind of waiting for this little kind of breakdown to happen. So far, no sign. Okay, great. It was down a little yesterday, up a little, by the end. Today, down a little, up a little. It's the relative movement is so small that it's not worth an option trade right here at this point. So not not looking to jump into it here just yet. Here's Verizon. This thing came up to the upper band, and you'll notice it didn't really weaken off the upper band. It just stalled. and now today breaking on higher. This is a very bullish type of move and does suggest further upside here for Verizon. You'll notice AT&T is kind of still in that little bit of stall mode here. It's not performing up there with, with Verizon here, but overall that's that's kind of what we're seeing here. I have a buddy in Venezuela, and he was a friend of my brother's, and he's become a family friend, and he is for lack of a better word, stuck in the country. His family, everybody's there, and he owned a little internet cafe. Where people could come and log on internet and stuff, and he's learned English on his own and very good. And we've gotten reports of Venezuela over the years from him, very interesting perspectives with Chavez and everything else. This morning he sent us a note basically talking about how many people the Venezuelan president Maduro is killing, just civilians that are being taken off the street and killed at random, seemingly at random, and how ugly things are getting. And apparently there's talk that the whole internet and cell phone companies are going to be shut down there within that country. Now, does that ultimately happen? The major news doesn't suggest it, but it's a little bit different type of insight there, and that is something that could affect AT&T or some of these U.S. companies that have a little bit of footing in Venezuela. But one thing to keep in mind is they don't have a huge footing in there. Over the last 10 years, things have been so bad in Venezuela that they've moved on out. Unfortunately, there's not a great way to short Venezuela, as most companies or U.S. companies that have had exposure there, their business has either just been purely taken over and stripped from them, or it's they have moved out. They've just absolutely moved out. But that is something worth keeping an eye on here when it comes to some of these telco names. But anyway, Rio, we talked about this yesterday. Goldman Sachs came in, downgraded yesterday. Today, got another downgrade. Let me grab. I forget who downgraded it. Let me grab that here. My apologies. I didn't have that in my note. I know they downgraded it from neutral to sell, basically. From neutral to underperform by Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Now, what's noteworthy here is you see the big bad bearish engulfing yesterday on volume, right? That's a top marker, right? That's an absolute top marker. And if you want a really good example of how those top markers tend to play out, right? Just come into a stock like Micron, and let's clean this up and go a little longer period. But big top marker right here on Micron. Big volume on this day. I don't have the volume on the chart, but big top marker. And you'll notice it didn't just, hey, you buy weeklies and, hey, it's just going to go straight down. No. There was a week of just kind of dragged back on up. And then fell off, rallied back, even pushed into a new high. But overall, it did mark its brightest days of the year. And basically, that's what I read in Rio right now. There's a big bad top marker here in it, and we'll be looking for chances to play it to the downside as we go forward. I don't think it's right here and right now. I think it is something where I want to see it kind of just, play out for 4, 5, 6 more days, trickle on up a little bit before I'm willing to jump in. Take a look at Alcoa. Alcoa breaking today, breaking the low from the last 1, 2, 3, 4 4 days, right? So in one fell swoop, boom, down about 4% here this morning. Pretty ugly move. We're seeing FCX break below its weekly lows here. We're seeing U.S. Steel, pushing on below its weekly lows. So, there's this erosion going on with stocks, breaking their lows from the prior week. And that's just something we haven't seen in the market this year yet. The over the course of this year, it simply, has not, it has not been that way. Okay. Alrighty. Well, thanks for hopping on. Any questions, please let me know, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.